So, welcome back, everybody. Next up is another close friend of Connect magazine, Lars Christian Weisswange. We've known each other for quite a couple of times. Some of his earlier positions in the industry were at HTC, Huawei, Honor, Lenovo, Kinetica. Quite an impressive list. And now he's here for his current company, Opticoms, and we're going to hear a talk about O-RAN-based 5G private networks and their advantages for the industry. And this is, I think, the crucial aspect of that. What can we expect from that? Lars, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the nice words and the introduction. We are now at the last mile of this lovely conference. We have heard lots of very interesting speeches already. Last mile is actually a good catchword for me, but I'll come to that in a second. Firstly, I would actually like to talk a bit about Opticoms and introduce you to this company. So we are a Munich-based company with mainly three pillars of focus. One is that we actually do a lot of engineering services, helping telcos with problems they might face. We also do a lot of advisory consultancy in the digital transformation space. And last but not least, we do focus on private 5G networks, especially in industrial environments, helping companies to understand the benefits of private 5G and what they actually can expect from it and how they can work with it. And the reason why this all fits very nicely together is something which I also wanted to point out very quickly. If you think about digital transformation and 5G, this all comes very close together because you have the physical world, everything you can touch and feel, and you have all these nice little gadgets and tools and devices who collect data, and you need to transfer the data, and you then put the data again together in a digital twin, and then you run analysis on this twin, and you try to use AI to make a virtual picture from what you have gathered. And at the end of the day, if you have an analytic tool which runs billions of data sets and analyzes these data sets in split seconds, you also need to make sure that the data flows accordingly, because otherwise then it's no use of having very advanced analytics if the data you're expecting is not coming. In the past, you also, as an industry, could use campus solutions from operators, so there were always chances to build up networks, base stations in your premises so that you at least have had coverage for your employees. But since 5G, that actually really changed a lot, because now you have the chance to use your own network, to control your own network, and that has a lot of benefits attached to it. So obviously, if you run your own network, you have a very high performance of the network. You make sure that it really covers the needs you have. You have, because of the full control and the own spectrum you have very high security and privacy. You can scale quite nicely on your own network, and you also have obviously a couple of additional costs, which I will address in one of the next slides as well, because it's actually not that big of a problem anymore. There are also downsides. Obviously, you don't have a global coverage. You don't compete with an operator with your own private network. You want to make sure that it's in a location and not across a whole country or a whole continent. And it brings a bit of a interruption in services with it. But both of this can be addressed. And since we also work a lot with operators, there are solutions which can overcome these hurdles also. The technology we advise most of our customers to use for their private 5G networks is O-RAN. The reason for O-RAN for us is that you have, compared with traditional networks, a very low-cost infrastructure, because you basically can use quite a lot of off-the-shelf products to run your network, to implement your network. It's very fast to install. Basically, you have to install just radio and power in a location, and the rest is usually already either available in terms of servers or can be easily scaled by using cloud compute servers. Then you have the big benefit of the easy scalability. So for you as a company, it's very easy to scale up, scale down. You have in O-RAN a decoupling of hardware and software, which helps you to, again, have a more flexible network. Then you have no vendor login, so when you decide for a vendor, it's easy to continue build up your network with a different vendor, because it's all interoperable, and you don't need to continue your endeavors with just one player. Because of the way the testing is done on O-RAN equipment and the sharing in these open forums, you have the benefit that you can rely on third-party testing for the network, so it's easy to integrate without having to worry about interference with a public network. Then, in terms of the O-RAN infrastructure, obviously it's not so different to what you know from other 3GPP networks. A lot of the stuff which is used is also based on 3GPP. But the one thing I wanted to point out here is, and that's actually a quite big difference, is that within O-RAN you have the possibilities to have RAN intelligence centers on different levels, right? And for example, you have the top level where the delay is in the seconds, where you can run AI-based automated intelligence for your network to optimize your network and make sure that the whole infrastructure is working very nicely. But you also have on the lower levels intelligence centers which enable you to better support your real-time use cases. So, for example, if you want to manage a production line where the interaction is very time-sensitive, you can already start to control your network on a lower level. And that's something where O-RAN definitely has a lot of benefits compared with traditional networks. The other thing which O-RAN gives you, and which I also wanted to point out, is that with O-RAN and with private 5G network, you enable yourself to have a much better mobile edge computing. We are at the moment working on edge solutions with a network management service in the local cloud, so in your local edge installation. And here you have traffic delays in the control systems of less than 10 milliseconds. You put this all on-prem, which also is a benefit for you to actually have it on-site. And depending on your solution, your area of the size of the network, you can have locations in the thousands easily controlled on that level. And the edge solutions which you usually have in the public networks are are further away from the actions you have here. We have actually now, because of customer requirement, developed an own network management solution based on mobile edge computing, and that has provided a lot of additional benefits. And one of the examples I wanted to show you is that last year at Bauma, we actually implemented a use case where you had in Munich a control center with some screens and how do you say, a simulator for the controls of this digger machine. That was connected via Wi-Fi, but we actually built up in a very short time frame a private 5G network in a location in Frankfurt. The overall installation time for this network was about 2 hours, and then we had it up and running. So in terms of implementation, I mentioned that earlier, the fast development times, it can be very quick. Here you actually had very low latency, so you could really completely control very easily and very effectively and very precisely this digger from the location in Munich with all the video transfer and so on. And it shows that the use cases for private 5G are not only very interesting for networks which are located and fixed located in some areas, but also for construction sites, for example, or for sports events where you have to cover a certain area for a limited amount of time. You can use private 5G in a very effective manner and with all the benefits of having a private 5G network. And I also wanted to emphasize on two things with the engagements we do at the moment on industrial level. Two things where I also would like to invite you to look into. We are part of a consortium called Zero Swarm. Zero Swarm is an EU-funded activity where we work on the enhanced 5G coverage for manufacturing. So mainly to identify the shortcomings of the standard 5G in terms of how to control and how to work in a production environment, how to make sure that the robots we have can be controlled in a manner that is useful and needed. And this Zero Swarm project has started last year. The consortium is now up and running. The first milestone will be finished during the course of this year, but we are still open for others to participate and to help out here if there's interest, especially from the industry. The other thing I also would like to mention here, and where I also invite you to be part of, is our activity at Euvena. Euvena is a consortium which we actually founded together with a few other people, which is trying to make sure that the spectrum for private 5G is more standardized across Europe, which would make life a lot easier for companies to adopt it when they have several locations in several different countries. At the moment, we have a lot of different approaches to private 5G depending on the countries. So in Germany, as you all know, we have a dedicated spectrum which everybody can use. Same in the Netherlands and in the UK, but in other countries it's very different. The reason why we are so focusing on this is that we believe the dedicated spectrum and the owned spectrum for the enterprise is actually very important to really make best usage of 5G. And with this, I close, and I'm here for the next 5 minutes to answer all of your questions.
So maybe we do a little check of our learning success here. I had to look it up, and I'm curious if everybody in the audience knows the difference between Open RAN and O-RAN. Could you just lift your hand if you know? Okay, so I think it might be worth explaining that.
Now you caught me.
Okay, so now what I just found on the internet is just, sorry, I got my headset a little destroyed here, but I think it's fine. What I found on the internet is that Open RAN is just a designation for the general technology, and O-RAN is an alliance that implements that, and which has a turnkey solution to that, which is basically an Open RAN solution, but not the only one on the market.
Okay.
So that is
I'm sure that our CTO would have known this, but for me it's just interchangeable.
Always a journalist's routine to look things up. Okay, but do we have any questions from the audience?
I'd like to ask whether the question for the costs is really solved, because there have been discussions that O-RAN is much more cheaper, and there are discussions with Rakuten and in the 1&1 context right now that it's not as cheap as it has been suggested. Is there any proof of concept for the cost effects?
So I think it really depends on what kind of scaling you're talking about. Obviously, if you talk about a scaling which Rakuten and 1&1 are doing, it might be a bit different towards the models for an enterprise customer. The big benefit of O-RAN is that not only you can really choose from a quite huge variety of vendors, and bring all of them together in one network without any problems. But the big benefit is also that because of the virtualization, you have a lot of components you can just buy off the shelf, right? You don't need to have a specific server which is only dedicated to an O-RAN core. You can use with certain specifications pretty much any server. The smaller the network is, I would say the more cost-effective the hardware is getting, and therefore you can better scale. I guess if you build up a network with tens of thousands of sites, it also costs quite a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay, Lars, thank you very much. And if any more questions arise, we still have our coffee breaks and our barbecue session later on. That will give plenty of opportunity to discuss those things in even more detail. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So.